New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, my friends, and thank you for joining us today for Spiritual Toolkit, where we discuss life's diversity, challenges, and blessings. My name is Brock Ford, and I am your host, and joining me on the team is producer Peter Millar, and a shout out to our New Thought Media Network founder, Robert Brzezinski. The idea for this show came from my sincere desire to be of a support and a voice for the disenfranchised, the struggling, and hurting people within my reach, and to offer spiritual and ethical practices that help others transform their lives, relationships, and careers. My belief is that together we can build a bridge of understanding, healing, and equality for all, no exceptions. And to that point, we will have guests from all walks of life discussing real life and navigating its twists and turns. And you're invited to join us each week and to participate on the chat if you have any questions or comments. So let's get started. I'm very excited today to have my dear friend Carsten Spencer as my guest. I met Carsten many years ago at Unity of San Francisco, and now we actually work together as ministers. Carsten is a spiritual mentor, an inspirational speaker, teacher, and energy worker. He is the spiritual, and I just had something pop up on my computer that looks like it's from the Twilight Zone. Not quite sure what happened there. If y'all can give me just a moment, we'll see what happened here, because I just sort of lost everything. Let me see.
We are seeing you, Brock.
Are you okay? I think I'm.
Yeah, we see you.
I think I'm back on. Let me just check. All right, but I cannot see y'all. There we go.
Huh.
Let me see. Wait just a second. I think I got you back. All right, so can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Are you ready to go? Okay, sorry about that, y'all.
You're looking good.
All right, well, let me start over, y'all. We've got Carsten Spencer here. He's a spiritual mentor, an inspirational speaker, teacher, and energy worker. He's the spiritual leader of Unity of Richmond East Bay, the creator of Carsten Energy Alignment, and the Miracle in 3 Breaths. His intention is to live from the heart, holding a space of love and acceptance that encourages connection, conscious awakening, and authentic creative self-expression. Carsten, my friend, is also an artist, an actor, performer, playwright, and director. And he says, his quote is, "Through my own healing journey of self-doubt and self-discovery, a process of learning to be fully present in my own body, I have embraced my path as an artist, spiritual teacher, and visionary." Carsten's goal is to live from the heart, holding a space of self-love and acceptance where we can experience connectedness, unity, and oneness with spirit, humanity, and all of life. He uses his gifts to create a healing atmosphere that allows you to awaken to your authentic self and claim your natural state of vibrant health, prosperity, and self-expression. And Arthur Sue Frederick, an intuitive and keynote speaker, said this about Carsten. She said, "Carsten is a leader, a visionary healer and teacher, creating a new vision of what it is to live in our bodies with health, peace, and power. His techniques move people from fear and disempowerment to knowing that they have the power, vision, and gifts to heal themselves. You can also check out Carsten on his website at www.carstenspencer.com. And with that said, everyone, let's welcome Mr. Carsten Spencer to the show. Hi, Carsten, welcome.
Hi, Brock, and hi, everyone. Wow, it's so great to be here, and it's so great to hear those words coming from your mouth because sometimes we forget that, we have a certain vision and a certain process. So it's wonderful to be here. Yeah, and I'm loving the format of the show. It feels really wonderful. Really, the whole purpose and everything just is it's very consistent with what we're wanting to share with the world.
It exactly is. That's why I'm doing it, and that's why I invited you, and I want you to get more involved with me as we go forward. So thank you. Thank you for being here. So what I want to do is I want to go way back because I know we're both old. So let's go way
I'm calling
back.
myself middle-aged because I'm
Okay.
planning to live till about 130, 150. So I'm just middle-aged at this point.
All right. Well, I'm going to call myself that too then. I like that. So these two middle-aged men, let's go way back. Where did you grow up? What was your family life like? And let's just start back there and go from there.
So it's interesting. I just came back a couple of weekends ago from a high school reunion. It was a all-class high school reunion because the high school I went to was open for 25 years. And so there were a whole lot of people there. But the thing that was amazing for me was going back to that old stomping ground. And, being with friends who, my one friend that I really enjoyed connecting with was pretty much we spent most of the time together, is someone that was born 30 days ahead of me. And so our moms used to stroll us around the neighborhood in our strollers together. So we've been friends forever. And to be able to go back and walk around this old neighborhood. I grew up in Southern California in a community called Palos Verdes, which is a beautiful community. It's out by the beach with beautiful beaches. And yet, like, I guess pretty much most of the world, there was an awful lot of dysfunction. Everything looked beautiful from the outside, but there was stuff going on. My parents divorced when I was moving into my teen years, my preteens. The family fell apart. So there was a lot of learning opportunities, which is really what I see our childhood is. It's, we come in and I think our soul chooses to give us everything that's going to activate our ability to move forward, grow, heal ourselves, come into balance. And, I kind of feel like at 68, I'm continuing to still come into balance, still to discover myself. But yeah, that's, I had an older brother and a younger sister. So I was the middle child and the second son. So it's dealing with all that stuff that comes into, what you get with your birth, your birth path, where you end up in the pecking order, shall we say.
When
But
they
yeah,
divorced, did you live with your mom or your dad?
well, I was living with my mom at first, but then my mom threw me and my brother out to live with my dad, which was kind of like jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. I'm not going to go into the depth of it, but I will say that my sister has written a one-woman show about kind of our childhood. It really is about our father's funeral. And I directed her in a number of different productions of it. And as we were, as she was performing, she kept saying, "I think we win." And I was like, "What do you mean we win?" She said, "I think we just had the worst childhood ever. Like it's not necessarily a race you want to win." That's what she thought. And of course, I don't believe that. I think there's a lot, worse or better things that happened. But there was a lot of craziness. And the gift for me is, although, took me an awful lot of my life has spent healing and sort of trying to reclaim some of the stuff that was torn out of me during that childhood. But ultimately, that journey is what made me who I am today and gave me the empathy and the desire to work with people to really, just, you read in my bio that's really my goal, is to create this space of peace and healing and harmony and to be able to share it with others. And I think the other gift of having a really rough childhood with two parents who, in their own way, were very human with a lot of human frailties. Through my journey, I have really come into full forgiveness for both of them. And that is so freeing.
It really truly is.
Yeah.
You know, when you said that, I know that I had a similar background. My parents were divorced, and I grew up with my stepfather, and then they divorced, and then my mother had boyfriends after that. But were you and your sister, did y'all get closer during that time? Because I know that you mentioned that you were directing a play. Tell us a little bit about that and how you interact with that.
Well, me and my sister were very, very close. And the challenge with being very, very close with one of your siblings and having a long lifetime is you both have a tendency to carry the same karmic patterns that you got programmed with. So although we were very close as we grew into adults, it was kind of back and forth. There were times when we didn't speak. We really knew how to push each other's buttons. But the gift is she wanted me to direct this play, and I think it's wonderful. She's a wonderful writer and a wonderful actress. So, she asked me and I stepped up and did it. And it was a wonderful experience. Although I have to say the last iteration of her show, which was the Denver Fringe Festival, I was supposed to be there for 6 days, the whole weekend. And after the first day of rehearsals and then the first performance that night, all sorts of old karmic stuff came up. Not surprising because, we were dealing with it, talking about my dad and his funeral and all the stuff that came up during that. So ultimately for me, it was really liberating because I've gotten to the point with my own teachings, when I get triggered, especially by the people that I really care about and love, I don't go into the blame or to fight back. To me, I've just learned that reaction where you throw the karmic stuff back does not allow for healing. So when she kind of flipped out on me, I just kind of said, I need to process this. I didn't fight back, and I actually sat in the place we were staying in. She went to the bed. Actually, she yelled a number of expletives at me and slammed the door. And I just sat down and went to spirit. Oh my goodness, what just happened there? And I breathed into the feelings. Every time the stories would come up about, oh, this is just her and all her stuff. It's like, no, what's the feeling? And as I allowed that feeling to move through me, I literally felt like it was ancestral healing that was happening by me not fighting back, by not making her the evil one, but by just feeling what it felt like to have all that energy after working on the play, which is a lot of the childhood stuff coming up, and then breathing into it. It was a real liberation. And I decided at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I still couldn't fall asleep and couldn't figure out how to deal with the whole thing the next day, I tuned into my guides, and they're present when I ask for them. That's the other thing I've learned, to trust your intuition. When you ask for your higher guidance, listen to what comes, even if you just think it's your imagination. The main thing I guide people to is, if it feels liberating and good and lighter, it's your higher power, it's your divine energies. If it feels heavy and like, oh, I don't want to do that, and feels like a punishment or somehow having to make up for something from the past, it's not your higher power. That's your old judgmental parent or whatever. But anyway, I tuned into my higher energies, and they said, what do you want in this situation? Because I was still wanting to show up for my sister for the rest of the weekend and her performances. But as soon as they asked that, my clear answer was, I want to go home. I want to be at home where I feel safe. And I've gotten my sister to the point where she had her first performance. She's good. So I basically called an Uber, went to the airport at 3 a.m. and came home. And it was one of the most liberating things that ever happened to me, because it was really like taking all the energies that you get from that family situation, because our families tell us who we're supposed to be. And I think very often we spend the rest of our life owning the things that are consistent with who we are, but clearing away all the stuff that's not really who I am. I don't have to show up for everyone just because they want me to. It's okay to put myself first. So that was really the gift. So it was wonderful. And, we a couple emails went back and forth, long emails, and that was liberating too, because I was able to speak my truth without blame or vindictiveness. And we haven't spoken since then. And, she's still in my head, and the love is always there, but I feel okay about taking the separation and allowing us both to process and grow. And, we'll see what happens in the future. But it was a turning point in a way, but also a real, I felt like coming out of the cocoon in a way.
Thank you for sharing that, such personal information. And I also know that you mentioned trauma and forgiveness earlier. And I don't want to take up too much time because we have a lot to talk about today.
Right, I know.
But at any rate, I wanted to touch on those two things because it seems that most of the ministers I've met in the last 3 years, going to seminary and at Anton and different and Unity and Village and things of that nature, I'm meeting people that had such trauma in their lives as early, young children, teenagers, things of that nature, and not just gay people, but people just straight people, trans people, whoever they are with families had trauma.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned in seminary was that I had to forgive. And it was difficult because I carried that with me for like 38 years and wanted to tell that story to everybody.
Yeah.
But when I finally was able to forgive like you did, it was such a wonderful cleansing kind of thing. And now I can look to those incidents that happened and be grateful for them because I wouldn't be who I am today without them.
Amen. Amen. And the thing about forgiveness is, and I share this with clients because it was my own experience. Forgiveness is part of what I talked about during the service last week. It's part of that divine grace. It's not something you can just decide to make it happen. And the gift of that is we need to go through the process. We need to feel the anger. We need to feel the emotions around it. I mean, part of my healing process was 2 8-page single-space typewritten letters that I wrote confronting my dad about the early childhood abuse. And then when he responded to my letter, he wrote his own 8-page letter back, basically justifying all the stuff, and but a lot of excuses and a lot of stuff. And it was interesting to me because the inner child in me, I think, which was the one who wrote that first letter, somehow thought that if I could explain it clearly enough that he would come back and go, "Oh my God, Carstenner," that was his nickname for me, Carstenner. "Oh my God, Carstenner, you're so right. What could I have been thinking? I'm so sorry." As if that would have made it all better, because it wouldn't have. But he didn't. He showed up as the man who did those things. And so I was able, as the adult, to take his letter and really respond as the adult. So it was a process of separation from the role of victim and victimizer into 2 adults who are doing their best to play with this crazy world we've been thrown into. And of course, through the stuff I went through with my parents, my belief is that our parents give us everything they have, all the quote good and all the bad, because that's what they got from their parents. And none of it's good or bad. It's just stuff that's out there so we can navigate through it and move forward, find more of a sense of peace, more of a sense of harmony within, more of that energy of compassion and connection with life, rather than the need to feel defensive and always feel like we're having to navigate this thing that's coming at us.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Now, before we get into all of your awesomeness, one more question I have for you. I know that you have a partner and some animals, a lot of animals in your apartment. So tell us a little bit about your personal life there, and then we're going to get into New York after that.
Okay. Well, I moved to San Francisco, gosh, it's going on 14 years now. And I had after growing up in Southern California, I moved to New York City around my mid-20s to be an actor, to be a performer, to, follow my dream. And I was there for 25 years. And then my mom got sick. And it was clear as the disease started to take control that somebody needed to be out there to take care of her. And even though my mom and I had a real fairly rocky relationship as well, I knew because of my spiritual journey that someone needed to be out there with her, one of the kids. And I really was the only one with the tools who was able to deal with my mom, because she could be very critical and very difficult. So I chose to do that. And I knew at the time that it was going to be a real gift. And it was a 9-month period where we worked together, where we really got to know each other for the first time, separate from the mother-son roles, and as 2 souls on this journey in the planet. I can't tell you how many times we both said, "Oh my God, I can't believe how alike we are," because we thought we were so different. But of course, that's the truth of our parents. They give us that stuff. But then after she passed, I spent a few years in Southern California. My partner of 8 years, and I broke up soon after my mom passed, which I find working with clients, that often happens after a parent passes. People reevaluate their relationship and things
Hmm.
changes. My brother also left his wife of many years and remarried after my mom
Wow.
died. But yeah, then after that, someone and I just all of a sudden after about a couple of years out in Southern California in my old stomping grounds, really kind of sowing some wild oats because I'd broken up with my partner and the internet was open. It's like, okay, what's going on out there? I suddenly
Mhm.
decided I'm done here. I'm not sure where I want to go, but my ex was still living in the apartment we had in New York. So I thought, let me go back there and kind of reevaluate. I can save money because that was a real cheap apartment. We'd be sharing rent. But then 3 people in the same week said, hey, have you checked out San Francisco? And I'd never been, believe it or
Hmm.
not. You living in California for all that time, I'd never made it up north. And so I connected with some friends. I came up and stayed with them. I listed myself on one of the gay chat sites and said, I'm coming to San Francisco. Who wants to show me around? And I got a couple of hits, no one that really interested in me. But then I got one that said, I'll show you. And I looked at the picture and it was Turo, my apartment, my partner who I live in the apartment now with. And I thought, oh, yeah, you can show me. And 6 weeks later, we were in this apartment. So that's
Wow.
how fast Spirit said, okay, mom's done. You finished that karma. Now here's a new karmic chapter to move through. Because I have to say, I called Turo my Buddha because he's another A personality. He's Mongolian and he actually is descended from Genghis Khan.
Hmm.
That they did this special on one of the PBS stations where they came and they took people's DNA because it was the birth of man or searching for Adam. Some of you may remember that
Mhm.
special that they did. Well, anyway, Toro was one of those who came up positive as a DNA match for Genghis Khan.
Wow.
So he's got that strong energy. And so bumping up against that strong energy, but knowing, because I, through my own journey, I trust my heart. And even though a lot of the things in my head said, I sure want to get together with this guy. He's, 18 years younger and, all this stuff. But my heart was like, no, this is what's here. And he clearly has similar feelings for you. Let's see what happens. And I have to say, not a day goes by that I don't feel the gratitude and the love and the appreciation that we found each other and that I was able to, even at the time, to say, I've got to get my F out of this relationship because we moved into this apartment. It all happened so easily. And I would ask Spirit, okay, how much trouble is it going to be to try to separate? And how compare that to trying to work things out using my own tools that I share with my clients in this relationship. And it was, it's been such a healing and really loving process. So that's it. And he loves animals as I do. And so we've got guinea pigs, we've got a bunch of canaries and birds. I have, of course, my Bengal cat, who's the love of my life, practically. Um, yeah, and I love San Francisco. This has really been a sanctuary for me these last 14 years, and also to be able to get reconnected with Unity through being on the board with you at Unity SF, and then being the spiritual leader up at Unity of Ukiah for 7 years, and now the fact that
Mhm.
you and I have been able to come together at Unity of Richmond East Bay. It's just there's so many things in my life that when I step back, I can just see that Divine Spirit has always been there going, what about this? What does
Mhm.
this look like? And the more I can let go and just trust, I realize that it's all there. And when I push too hard, I get in my way. I don't see it. So it really is being able to trust the divine support of the universe, basically.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. That's what we teach. And,
Yeah.
oftentimes, sometimes we forget too. We do spiritual bypass,
Oh,
and,
totally.
but we have to remember it also. There are times Peter can actually tell you, and I hope he doesn't right now, but Peter can tell you, I get really irritated with all the dogs sometimes, and I love them all as well. And there are times I'm trying to get work done and you get irritated, and I have to go back and take a deep breath and go upstairs to my room and go, okay, and one time Peter said, Brock, you're not practicing what you preach. And so I went, did he really just say that to me? So at any rate, but we have to be reminded also, and we have to do the practice and the work, and that's what keeps us actively into the teachings.
Well, one of the things that's been such a gift for me, it's a book and a 10-week process called the Presence Process. And it teaches you to thank the messenger and get the message whenever you're triggered. And it
Mm,
really helped me to realize that those triggers that come up, the dogs, especially our animals, Max, Bengal cats are very vocal. And I have learned, it's taken me almost 5 years, because I've had Max for almost 5 years, that Max can key into my anxiety and he'll start meowing.
mhm,
And I'll bet your dogs do the same thing.
mm,
So I've learned,
mhm,
and I don't do this all the time. Sometimes I'm going to yell, "Shut up, Max," and I'm going to take him and put him in the other room. But mostly, if I stop and pet him and go, "What's going on with you now?" That's what I need.
mhm.
That's what
Exactly.
I need. And then he calms
Mhm,
down, and then I can focus on what I want to do. But
mhm,
that's one of the gifts of being on this journey and having there's so many tools out there that can help us remember that there's always a different way to approach life, and that we do get programmed, those early programming by in the most cases. And I don't really like the word dysfunctional family. If we're still here talking about it, then they're semi-functional. They've gotten us
mhm,
here, so they're not
mhm,
dysfunctional, but
mhm,
they do give us the karmic fuel to then move through life if we're willing to open up to life itself and let it teach us, let it hone us,
mhm,
let us. And certainly unity and so many of the wonderful teachings out there have so many tools that are so helpful. And I can forget to use them as well sometimes.
mhm. And we'll talk about unity too before we end up today. But we're about to go to break in about 4 minutes, Karsten, and we'll take about a 3-minute break. But before we do, give us, let's take this time before the break. You used to live in New York. I know you're on Broadway and a performer. Give us some insight into your life there.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was there for 25 years, so it was quite a life. The
Wow.
thing about New York, and I tell people this, is visiting New York is not at all like living there. And it takes about a year to assimilate so you can really feel like, oh, this is mine. And when you've lived there for long enough and New York becomes your backyard, it just is a magical place. The people, the energy, the possibilities. I mean, although I went there to be a performer and I did a lot of that, I also spent a lot of time doing temp work. I was a legal secretary, sometimes temporarily, sometimes permanently. But I look back at that, and that was also wonderful. I mean, and a lot of it depends. Any job, I think, mainly depends on who you're working with.
Mhm,
And my job at like EMI Records, when I worked in the music department, I loved the people that worked there. I still think of them as part of my soul family. Um, but yeah, New York is a magical place. And a lot of what I did when I got to New York was put my own stuff together because I was not a good auditioner. I would get too nervous and too frustrated. I would, practice my monologue forever. It would be perfect. And then I'd go in and I'd go, bo, bo, and I think my best talent is dancing. And one of the things that got me to say, I'm going to own the fact that I want to be a performer and I want to do this is for my high school graduation. My good friend Michael invited me up to Las Vegas to see Diana Ross, who invited me up on stage to dance with her during Love Hangover. And she gave me her scarf at the end of the show because she was so impressed. I did the bump with her and I was doing the robot. And she was like, whoa, this white boy can dance.
Do you still have that scarf?
No, I gave it to my sister when she moved from she was the first one to come back to New York because she got into the neighborhood playhouse school. Well, I gave it to her to ultimately give back to me, but just for her journey. Well, she lost it. So that's another
Oh.
thing that I was sitting there after that big thing at the Denver Fringe Festival, that all the stuff in the past came up and I was able to feel all those old resentments and stuff. So
Mm.
she still may be able to find it somewhere, but I've let go of that.
Good for you. And thank you for sharing that also. I was going to say, if you still had that scarf, I'd like to touch it and just see
No,
it,
I would like
you
to
know,
touch it
but
again too. Yeah, it had her lipstick on it and everything. It was, yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And I have pictures of her in the outfit that she wore for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Peter, I think it's time for us to take a break. If you'll take us out, and we'll be back at New Thought Media Network. Don't y'all go anywhere. We still have a lot more to discuss with Carsten Spencer, and we'll be back in just a few minutes on New Thought Media Network.
Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Well, looks like we're back, everyone, at New Thought Media Network, Spiritual Toolkit, and my guest, Carsten Spencer. Thank you for joining us and staying with us. Hi, Carsten. Welcome back.
Thanks, Brock.
So we're in the second half of the show. And so what I'd like to ask you next is, would you tell us a little bit about your journey to New Thought Teachings and how that started and how you ended up with Unity?
Well, I would say it started, my first 2.5 years in school, my parents sent us to a Catholic school because somehow they heard that the public schools weren't very good. So they sent us to them. And halfway through my second grade year, I just was not willing to go anymore. The nun that was teaching my class sort of picked me out. I don't know if it was because I was one of the non-Catholics or whatever, but I would be sick every day. And so I finally got out of that. And so for a long time, because of that early kind of wounding Catholic experience, I was an atheist, like all through my growing up years. And then when I first moved to New York, even before that, someone had given me a book on yoga. And as I began doing some of the practices, particularly the meditation and stuff, I began to open to, there is something more out there than just this, tuned into that energy. And also, I would also get that message through nature. And then when I moved to New York, someone told me about Unity, and I used to every Sunday go and hear Eric Butterworth speak. And Paul Tenaglia was also the associate minister then too. So if Eric wasn't speaking, Paul was there, and me and Paul made a very great connection. We were kind of kindred spirits. And so I got very involved with Unity in New York. And that kind of led to a lot of other things. I found the Seth material around that same time. Have you heard of the Seth material? Jane Roberts, back in the 60s, tuned into this entity, which she called Seth, which she would kind of go into a trance or just sort of zone out. And it first came through writing, and then she was able to just dictate it to her husband. But the first book that came out was called Seth Speaks, and then the second one was called The Nature of Personal Reality. And I think that's a book, if anyone's interested, to go ahead and get, because it really speaks to what unity talks about and what so many of these new thought teachers talk about. So that was a big part of my journey. And then through that, I got connected with past life regressions through the Light Institute. I went there a couple of times into what I would call extensive past life recall, because it's not like someone else is telling you about your past life. You lie on a table and they take you into, I would call it kind of a light meditative state, but they connect you with your higher power. And the higher power, and I think that was one of the most powerful gifts of that process, is I came out of it with a deeper, more intimate connection with that inner guidance. Although I will say that when I get triggered or things stressed out, I can totally forget that. But that was one of the gifts. And then after that, I got connected with Siddha Yoga, which is some of the ancient Indian guru traditions. So I did a lot of chanting, a lot of work through them. But yeah, I've because of my early Catholic stuff, because I was gay, which at that point in life, you realize, when you decide to own that part of yourself, that it makes you kind of separate from the established world. So the gift of that is I really felt free to explore all sorts of different things. I didn't feel I had to fit into some box. I was just more of a free spirit, which allowed me to really explore a lot of different religions and a lot of new thought stuff, a lot of energy work. Yeah, so that's my, go ahead.
I was going to say, since you're speaking about energy, tell us about your energy alignment and the 3 breaths. How does all of that work?
Well, the Miracle in 3 Breaths is something I came up with really right after I moved to San Francisco and decided to really because I was teaching yoga before that, and I was doing what I call yoga energy massage. So I was working one-on-one with clients, doing yoga and also doing hands-on energy work. And then when I moved to New York, and clients were asking me, because when I moved to New York and I was teaching yoga after I lived there, the opportunity to teach yoga, I was taking a class and I had no intention of actually teaching, but the teacher asked me to stay after class one day, and I thought, oh my God, am I in trouble? Because he was one of those yoga teachers who could be very strict. And he said, the YMCA wants to add more yoga classes and I don't want to teach anymore. My schedule is full. So I told them I would find a teacher. And I think you might make a good teacher. Have you had any experience? And I said, no, I've never taught yoga, but I did teach dance in the past and whatever. He said, good. Then, he kind of mentored me, and I began to teach yoga. And through that, it led ultimately, once I moved up to San Francisco, to more of my spiritual work and the Miracle in 3 Breaths, because I started working again one-on-one with clients. People would, they'd come, I'd work with them, I do the energy work, I do sound healing with my voice as well, which helps to balance chakras. And I also work with crystals. And when clients would come, they say, oh my God, every time I come, I come in so stressed out and I feel so calm and relaxed. But then the minute I go out in the world, I lose it. Do you have any techniques that will help? So I remembered when I was teaching in New York, it was a Friday night, 6 o'clock class in New York City. So people would come in very stressed out. So that's when I first started using the Miracle in 3 Breaths. And I called it my yoga tranquilizer. And it basically, I can do it with people right now. It's very simple. And then there's also a video on my website. But you start just by getting comfortable, recognizing where you are, tuning into gravity. And the first breath is you draw in that connection with Mother Earth. So everybody do that. And then as you exhale, you just notice how that felt. Whatever is present as the breath flows out, you notice how that felt. And then as you're about to breathe again, you open up the crown chakra, drawing in that divine spirit. And as you exhale, you just feel that divine spirit saturating every cell and every system of your body. And then as you take your final third breath, you activate the heart center, that kingdom of heaven within. And then as you exhale, you simply hum, allowing the vibration to activate all this in your system. And then you just notice. And no matter how stressed out you were, if you do that just as best you can, you don't have to do it perfectly, you will notice things start to shift. Sometimes they can start to shift a lot. And you always want to give yourself space just to notice what's there afterwards. And if you've got the time and you're feeling really stressed out, do it again. Those 3 breaths, notice how you feel.
You know, sometimes we forget to take a breath. And just doing that right now with you guiding us, when we took those 3 breaths, I can honestly say now, I feel like I just sort of settled in a little bit, and
Yeah.
my breathing became softer, and I almost feel like I just had a nap or something. And you, and that was like in 2 seconds. But I wanted to ask you a question about that. Um, the sound healing, and the Tibetan warrior, things of that nature. Um, I know that sometimes at night I'll go onto YouTube and I'll look for different sounds to just sort of help it. Sometimes it's rain, you know, sometimes it's a meditation thing or frequency. But I've found those Tibetan bowl sounds, and so I've been watching those late at night. So tell me a little bit about how that energy works, because I'm a layperson with that, and so I know that when I hear those bowls being, you know, strummed or whatever you say, it does something to you. It does something to me. And so at Unity Village last year at the Anton conference, they had someone do that, and they had multiple people. It was phenomenal what happened to that room. So how does that work?
Well, I'm sure you notice, and maybe the people who are on with us today are listening to this later. If you actually did the hum at the end of the 3 breaths, that hum is what brings it all together. We have 7 main chakras, but the throat chakra is the only chakra that actually can create a physical vibration, which is sound. So our throat chakra is really powerful. If you go to a lot of seminars, or you watch speakers, or even watch things on TV, or you know, we're all around people, you will notice that the quality, the tone, the cadence of just a speaking voice has a lot of energy in it, separate from what the person is actually saying. And so vibration is very powerful. The reason, like the Tibetan bowls or the sound healing that I do with my voice, uh, has such a power is because it's a clear, sustained tone, which allows the chakra system to come into harmony. Sometimes with these live things that are or the Zoom that we're doing here, when I do a sustained tone, it will kind of fade out. But I'm going to do one, and even if it fades out, I want people to just, because the vibration, even if you're not hearing it audibly, it moves out. So I want people to tune into their heart chakra, and I'm just going to sing a gentle, sustained tone, and just let yourself breathe into it. And as you feel ready, come back. But that's the power of sound. You know, this physical universe that we live in, there's really nothing solid here. The quantum scientists have told us that. It is a combination of energetic patterns. And from my point of view, and I'm not a scientist, but and this is the other thing, and when you said I'm a layperson, I don't really know about this. All the clients that I work with, the message I want to give to them is you have all the information within you. Yes, there's hordes of wonderful information out there, and I never want to stifle people from looking for information. But when Metatron, that divine archangel, showed up for me, the week after he showed up very powerfully during a session, I was opening someone's heart chakra, and the window in my living room burst open, not physically, but I had my eyes closed, but I saw it with my inner vision. And this energetic pattern, it was kind of this beautiful orange sacred geometry, moved in, filled the room. I actually had to back up as I was continuing to do the tone. It was up against the back of the wall. And the voice I heard in my head as that window opened and that energy came in, it was Metatron. After the tone finally, and it was this tone that seemed to last forever, my client and I just started laughing, and she was like, "What was that?" And I said, "It was Metatron." I don't know. But all during that week, every time I went to look up Metatron on the computer, get more information, I would hear that voice, and I want to call it his voice, but it, you know, they don't have one sex. But he would say, "Why are you looking online? I'm right here. Anything you want to ask me," and start to trust that inner guidance. So that's the other thing. If people are interested in sounding and vibration, play with it on your own. I invite my clients all the time to simply hum into their heart center. Feel that connection between throat and heart as you just do a simple hum, letting it bring you into a meditation. A lot of people will do an om coming into meditation. Same thing when we do the om, just think of the vowel. And om is one of the warrior seed syllables, which I'm teaching now, and I actually want to give a wonderful offer to anyone who's listening today. If you want to join us on this journey, there's 4 more weeks, and I can send out the recording of last week's session. But these are ancient, from the Bon Tibetan Buddhist tradition. These are ancient symbols that balance and align the chakras and open up a channel to clear what the Tibetan Buddhists call the obscurations that we take on because of the karmic stuff. So it really is able to clear the chakras and thus allow the Shakti, or the life force, to flow through more fully, with the intention of inviting in that divine guidance from above. So and the main thing about the sounds, the tones, they bring all parts into the moment. That's why we love music so much, right? That's why music speaks to us, and it's a spiritual thing, a spiritual practice, because it brings us into the heart. It's speaking to us on many levels.
I know that when you were doing that sound, I actually felt a vibration in my arms. You know, it's like it was coming from you through this. But the sound, I'm going to pay more attention to the sound as I go forward. And thank you for sharing that with us so that I can learn that as well. I know that when I saw, there were probably like 10 bowls and 10 people doing that sound all in unison last year at the conference. It was an amazing experience.
Yes.
It was unbelievable. So at any rate, we've got about 10 minutes left on the show. It's gone by really fast, actually.
I know, it sure has.
I know. So Carsten, would you, are you prepared to give us a reading today?
Well, sure. What I'd like to do, since I talked about the, and people can go to my website, carstenspencer.com, but since I talked about the warrior seed syllables, which we started last week, I just like to read a little bit about that. And the gift of, this is maybe the 3rd or 4th time I've taught the warrior seed syllables, but I think one of my gifts, partly because of the crazy childhood where I kind of had to continually be reevaluating, where am I living, what's going on here, who's my friend and who's my enemy, is it allows me to trust that everything is always evolving. And so this time teaching the warrior seed syllables, I'm really excited, because so much of the stuff because I went into like what I would call a deep hibernation or cocoon process during the pandemic, because I was doing a lot of inner spiritual practices. I really took advantage of the fact that we were all sequestered. And now I did a lot of toning, a lot of work with my crystals, a lot of work with the chakras, a lot of work with calling in my guides to kind of help rehone this, not only the physical apparatus of our bodies, but the energetic apparatus. And now that I'm going back into the warrior seed syllables, because they have this ancient energy from the Tibetan Buddhists, they just feel more powerful than ever. And I've got about 17 people already signed up, but there's room for more if anyone's interested. But let me just read this to just sort of share a little bit about this process. One of the world's oldest unbroken spiritual traditions is the Bon Buddhist tradition of Tibet. This wisdom path has survived for over 10,000 years. During this 5-week course, we will experience the power of Tibetan sound healing and learn to use the ancient sacred sounds of the Bon practice to activate the healing potential of our natural mind. And what I want to say is, according to the Tibetan Buddhist, the mind is not the brain. Our mind exists in the heart and takes advantage of the brain, the intellect, the emotions. It brings all parts of us together. The Bon healing tradition invokes the 5 warrior syllables, seed sounds that bring us to the essential nature of mind and release the boundless creativity and positive qualities that are fundamental to it. Through the medicine of sound, we learn to clear obstacles in body, energy, and emotion, as well as the subtle sacred dimension of being. And that's really, I will say, what we glimpsed, or what we can glimpse, just through that simple miracle in 3 breaths, those 3 breaths and the humming and the relaxation that came in. Brock, what you talked about feeling like you just woke up from the nap. That's that subtle, sacred aspect of being, or dimension of being. It's what the Christ talked about, the kingdom of heaven within. It's that energy that's always with us when we're willing to stop and look within. This course is designed to give you the tools to access your unique wisdom and compassion by using the vibration of sacred sound to cultivate the healing, harmonizing power within your subtle channels, which is the chakras. We activate the chakras. The 5 weeks will also include specific techniques and practices I've developed using these powerful syllables with clients and on my own to clear karmic patterns and mental and emotional clutter, and activate creativity, inspiration, and an intimate connection to your higher guidance. So that's the other thing I want to share. And whether or not you decide to do the warrior seed syllables, and there's lots of stuff on YouTube. Actually, the main teacher who my teaching evolved out of has 5 different videos on YouTube. So you can check that out. Put in Tibetan sound healing and his videos will come up so you can check it out. But ask your inner guidance. If anyone is feeling the need to connect more fully with that inner connection, nature is a wonderful way, but breath and gravity and a simple hum, and then staying open. Ask and ye shall receive is a really wonderful thing. And you want to start by asking for simple things, like if you're feeling confused or a lot going on, stop, take a few breaths, and ask for clarity. And then after you ask, take a breath, because very often spirit is present and you will get clarity right away. If it doesn't come, then that's the time to say, okay, what is present? Because if you ask for clarity and you're still feeling the anxiety, trust that spirit is giving you exactly what you need. And perhaps you need to just sit with the anxiety and see what that has to tell you. Most of the uncomfortable emotions push us into the fight, flight, fixing. But what the presence process teaches us, what the warrior seeds syllables coach us to do, is be with the discomfort, invite it to do what it's supposed to do when we can be with it and stop trying to fix, which is putting the karma back out there. Because if you throw it out there, it's going to come back. That's why it was so powerful that I didn't react to my sister when that whole thing happened. I took care of myself. When you don't do it, you allow it to come within you. The answer always comes, but sometimes in divine timing. So you can ask for something in prayer, and what the ego does is if it doesn't come right away, it's like, oh, I don't believe in that stuff. And you move forward.
It's true.
But that's what faith is about. I'm going to put it out there. If it doesn't come right away, that's okay. But let me be present with what's here, because maybe that clarity is by moving through what's present rather than trying to get rid of it.
I truly believe that if we can acknowledge the present when we're in that state of confusion or irritability or whatever, but if we can be present in that moment, because that's really what we have. We don't have that next moment. We don't have the one before it. So when we can be present, I had Missy Higginbotham on the show last month, and she is a big proponent of presence, of really truly studying to be present with people and with yourself. So thank you for that, Carsten. Was there anything else about that you wanted to say?
There was, but I kind of blanked out for a minute. Let me see if it will pop back. There's Turo. Hi, honey. I'm on a call right now. Say hi.
Hi, Toro. Hello. So we've got about 4 minutes left, actually. What would be some last thoughts that you would like to leave with people here today?
Well, I think before we leave the warrior seed syllables, I want to give a special gift to who's ever interested and is thinking of wanting to work with me in the future. You can go to my website and use at checkout, push on the warrior seed syllables. It'll give you more information to see if it's something you really want to do. At checkout, you can put in the coupon code SEED50, SEED, the number 50, and it will give you a 50% discount. And the other thing I will offer anyone who signs up for the course and wants to join us for the final 4 courses, and you'll get a recording of the first one, so you'll get all 5. I want to offer a 60-minute one-on-one session. If you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, you can come and we'll do it in person. If you're not, we can do it online. And I will say the sound healing and the work that I do works very powerfully online. You don't have to do it in person. And if anyone has questions about that or whatever, you can contact me through my website or through Carsten Spencer at hotmail.com.
Carsten, that is really, really kind of you to do that for our audience. So audience, please take up on that. Take that up and take him up on that and let's go together. I'll be glad to go as well. So would love to take that course too, Carsten.
Wonderful.
Thank you. That would help us. Wow. We've come to the end of our show, everyone. And Carsten, I'm so grateful for your participation and sharing such interesting, thoughtful, and helpful information as well. I love you so much. I'm so glad that we're working together again and that you joined our show today. Thank you.
Me too. And Brock, I love you too. And just thank you so much for doing this, for all that you do, but also for doing this and getting it out there. And I want to invite everyone to join us on Sundays at Unity of Richmond East Bay. If you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, you can join us in person, but we also stream on Zoom, and I'm sure you can get that information online as well. Unity of Richmond East Bay.
And y'all, I can tell you, it is a joyful experience being at that church. Yeah. We have fun, we interact, and we have presence and power and mightiness.
And we're starting a choir. We're going to be starting a choir soon. We're also going to be doing the Unity of Richmond East Bay Players, because I'm an actor and a playwright, and I've found a play that I wrote years ago during the pandemic. So I put a cast together. We've got a nice stage there. So come and join us. Our mission with Unity of East Bay is to activate people's creativity, really help people move into their power and their truth.
It's true. Thank you, Carsten. And y'all, don't forget to check out his website at carstenspencer.com. And I want to thank all the viewers that showed up today. Thank you so very much. And the viewers that are going to see this later on when they decide to take a look at it. Thank you for being here and joining us. And join us next week when we meet with the founder of New Thought Media Network, who is Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski. And y'all, I'm excited to talk to him. He's an amazing person. He's got a wealth of information that is way beyond my comprehension. And so we'll be able to talk with him and find out more about this network, his ministry. His wife is also in ministry with him. And also check out all the other great shows, y'all. There's so many. There's meditation shows. There's actually live stream Sunday sermon type shows, practitioner shows, all kinds of shows on New Thought Media Network that can uplift and help you. So check those out at ntmedia.org. And y'all, I guess I'm going to say good night, everyone. See you next week, and blessings. Thank you. Thank you, Carsten.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Brock, for everything. And thank you, Peter, for being our tech person.
Thank you, Peter.